Greetings and thank you for inviting us to talk. Today we'll be highlighting some of the results from the virtual Footlocker project in this presentation. Just as a broad overview, the virtual Footlocker project in its entirety focuses on the development of an open source cross-system platform for capturing and preserving personal communication and the documentary record of the modern soldier. This is a much larger project than just what we are talking about today, and I'm very happy to be joined by two of my project team members, our graduate assistant, Jillian Brownlee, and our postdoctoral researcher, Dr. Alan Martell. As I noted, this is a much larger project, but today we're going to focus in on the current phase of our project, phase 2. This phase is funded by an IMLS grant of about $400,000 that allowed us to pay for GA and a postdoctoral fellow, as well as for an advisory board, the inclusion of focus groups and conducting these focus groups, followed by an analysis of the findings and developing workshops and curriculum to support both archivists and veterans. And now to tell us a little bit more about the focus groups, I'm pleased to introduce Jillian.
Thank you. So we conducted 22 focus groups in total, 4 per military branch, divided between officers and enlisted. 2 of our groups were for women only, with one of each of those for officers and enlisted. These groups lasted from about an hour to an hour and a half, and each participant received $150 in compensation. Originally, these groups were supposed to take place in person, but when the pandemic hit, we switched to Zoom-based groups. This actually turned out to be a good thing in the end, as we got to bring in participants from all over the country. Once the groups concluded, we used open coding to analyze the transcripts. By the end of the focus groups, we had 99 participants. You can see the breakdown of the demographics here by rank, race, gender, and branch. When we first started recruiting, we attempted to have the same number of participants in each group, with the demographics reflecting the demographics of the branch they corresponded to. Of course, not everything works out exactly as we plan it, so these are the numbers that we wound up with. And now I'll hand off to Alan, who will discuss the Love Me binders.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. So now I would like to talk to you about one of the key findings that we detected since early on in our as we were holding our focus groups. We were very puzzled with this idea of the Love Me binders, which is essentially a way in which our military veterans start to record their personal archives, even from before they become veterans. That is, they begin from the moment that they are still active in service. And so before I explain what Love Me binders are, I would like to present to you what is the challenge that active service members and later veterans are faced with. So around the beginning of the Iraq War, digital media just exploded so much. And unfortunately, some of that stuff has already been lost. And a lot more will be lost because people just don't know how to preserve this stuff and don't think about it. So again, anything that can get people to think about it closer to the point of generating these artifacts in media and stuff is great. And so what we can see here is essentially a recognition among the people that we talk to that there is a change that begins early in the 2000s with the advent of more pervasive digital technologies, especially the mobile phones, but not only that, and how that changes the way in which they were going about handling their own information. It posed certain challenges, right? And so one of the challenges that they face now is related to the loss of records. So another quote, the digital stuff I had primarily on thumb drives, and I had like these huge terabyte when they were like ginormous. Now you can get nice size ones that are small, but I lost that one in the middle, and that one hurt my heart. I was like, no, I've lost everything. Or movies we watched, the random billions of songs you downloaded just to keep your mind occupied that we used to play in our backgrounds. All of that got lost in the movie, and I was devastated. I think I dropped a few cellular tears for that. And so in this case, what we can see now is that on the one hand, military life is riddled with a lot of complications, including the fact that many service members are required to move from one place to another. And in that mayhem of having to switch places, often people not only lose stuff in the physical sense, sometimes basically their information can also get broken. They stop, their devices where they keep the records stop working. Or in other cases, they may lose access to the accounts where they were holding digital information. And this matters because then all those memories, all those experiences, and all those proofs of the training, of their medical information, all of that is at risk. And so when we talk about record loss, we're talking about several phenomena here, but some of the things that we notice most commonly, more repeatedly throughout the data is that some people are simply not documenting because they didn't consider it back when they were active service members. This is mostly among veterans, but then also a lot of people complain about how the agencies handling the move are not very trustworthy. And so they always told us that they made a point of keeping with them very close to themselves the things that were most important, because they knew that trusting them would imply the risk of losing information. Then occasionally some people would place stuff in the wrong places, and others would, as I said, just lose access because either the devices where they kept the digital stuff broke, or because they lost the passwords, or their accounts where they were handling stuff in the cloud, basically they got deleted due to inactivity. And so just to offer some context about the challenge posed by digital records in the early 2020s, plus the difficulties of keeping that information in the long term. One of them is prior research has told us already that there are underrepresentation in health records among health service providers and the government. Conditions such as PTSD may be underrepresented in the data. And then we also know that for veterans, they require proof of their time of service in order to access their benefits. And the information of the government can sometimes be inaccurate. And so to these three factors, we also noticed through our own data collection that active service members have been actively encouraged in the last 20 years, especially to keep, to manage their own records. And so this is where the Love Me Binders comes into the picture. The daily journal that I kept, especially when I was deployed, I used that to develop when I was going through the process of getting a certain percentage based on different things that were wrong with me from being deployed twice and the regular day-to-day in the Army. I was able to go back to exact dates and times when certain events happened, which aided in that process because on the flip side, the Army didn't keep very good records of what I did and didn't do and what went on. So that was a huge help to me when it came to getting my percentage for my disabilities that I have, including my PTSD. I think at a greater rate, just because I did have those records myself. I wasn't relying on the Army, that the Army remember what I could remember from memory. So that was really instrumental for me. And so here we can see how the fact that people are now taking, that active service members are taking active steps to document their experiences early on in their service pays significantly in the long term and allows them to access healthcare, among other benefits. And so, which kinds of information do we get here? So what is the format in which this information is being recorded? Well, we have 3-ring binders, we have filing cabinets, and of course, as we see in the picture, food lockers. These are not by any means, this is not by any means an exhaustive list, but it represents some of the most common formats in which people are recording their information. Likewise, some of the most common types of records that we saw are their discharge papers, their DD-214 forms, school certificates, awards, annual reviews, travel orders, PCS orders. What do people use this information for? So here's an example. For me, I like to keep just so when my son gets older, he can see it and be like, whoa, my mom's a badass. I mean, I'm gonna remind him as long as I live that I am a badass, but just so he can see all the stuff that we have. I mean, my husband's grandpa, he still has the stuff from when he was in, and he actually went through it with him not too long. So it's just kind of nice to go back and look and see what you have been through and all the experiences you had while you served. In this example, we can see a lot of intentions at play as to why people keep the records. On the one hand, I mentioned earlier the idea of accessing benefits, but there is also the opportunity to reminisce, to remember with that fondness those times in service and the hardship that people overcame. But in this quote in particular, we see that there is also something else at stake, something symbolically far more valuable to people, which is their legacy. What is it that is going to be left for society or their families after they're gone? And so, moving forward, what we're planning to do is to work on developing a curriculum. We're thinking of working on curriculum both for archivists and for active duty service members and veterans. We also are going to make these curriculum publicly available. And we also want to focus more on external promotion of our project. And of course, we also want to do some outreach to the academic community through conferences and publications. And finally, to save our data for posterity through data banking.
If you're interested in keeping up with the project sorry, I'm gonna start that over. If you're interested in keeping up with the project, then you can either check our website, virtualfootlocker.com, or you can follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Instagram being @virtualfootlocker and Twitter being @virtfootlocker.
Thank you for allowing us to present part of our data today. We have a lot more rich and robust data. Of course, we can't get into everything in the time limitations of a presentation, but we look forward to engaging with you in the question and answer session. And if you have any questions about this project or how things are going, you can always also reach out to us directly via email, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions. Thank you very much again, and we look forward to the discussion and question and answer session.